We are in the building. Hey, my friend, how you doing, man?
What's up, sir? Good to see you, man.
Yes, sir. We made it through Good Friday.
We have.
It was making our way to Resurrection Sunday.
Yes, sir. And trying to resurrect the ministries and the businesses of some of the people that we're able to impact to this platform.
Yeah. So, well, this is going to be an exciting conversation. Welcome, everybody. I'm giving you a minute.
Can you hear me, Rick?
I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now.
You're all good. Okay. All right. I want to give everybody just a moment to get on here. Hope you've had a great Saturday. I hope you're still observing social distancing. I know it's Easter weekend. I know you want to go see Big Mom and them. But let's go ahead and get this curve flattened so we can really hang out. Until then, keep following the stay in place order and everything that has been set in place in your respective state and city, and hold your hood down. Keep you and everybody else safe. Stephen, how you doing, man?
Man, things are well. Excited to be back with you again. Got a lot of good feedback from our last time of connecting and sharing. So I'm excited to drop some nuggets today to impact and to empower people. Quickly, I got a call last night from a gentleman who's in that baby boomer era and has been watching us, and he's recovering from COVID. He had it, was in the hospital, and he was able to spend more time on Facebook than he normally has.
Right.
And it's been our posts that have challenged him, that have convicted him, that have encouraged him to change his mindset. So getting that call last night, just, that was just like the seal on things. This is working, it's impactful, and I was excited that we're making an impact in people's lives.
Man, thanks for sharing that. And he hasn't shared that with me, by the way. I'm hearing it here for the first time. And well, here's the thing, Stephen. I'm just glad that he finds some value in musings from these meandering, muddled mazes that we call a mind. I'm glad he finds value in us thinking out loud. So that's great to hear, man. Thanks so much for sharing that. Welcome, everybody, to The Revolution. Will not be televised. It will be streamed. This is a conversation about leadership and life in the digital age. Who is this conversation designed for? I'm so glad you asked. It's designed for pastors, entrepreneurs, consultants, digital content creators, social media influencers, corporate executives, educators, lottie-dottie, and everybody who desires to maximize their potential, mobilize their purpose, and multiply their productivity. Let me say that last part again. If you're serious about maximizing your potential, if you're serious about mobilizing your purpose, and if you're serious about multiplying your productivity, this is the conversation you want to be a part of. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. RickyAllmon, and of course, my brother,
StephenThurston.
Yes, sir. We're not co-hosts, we're hosts. This is an equal value platform here. So here's what I need you to do. Take a moment, share this conversation on your timeline. If you're on Facebook Live, if you're on YouTube, share it and start a watch party, particularly those on Facebook. Start a watch party right now. I think I just said FaceTime. If you're on Facebook, all this technology starts converging at some point.
Yeah.
If you're on Facebook, share this on your timeline. Stephen, I'm gonna do that myself. I don't know if you've already done it.
Yeah, do me, Rick, since I'm on my phone, if you'll tag me in it so it shows up on my.
I'll do it right now.
Thank you, man. And then rest of you all, go ahead and drop what city you're watching from.
Yes.
And do us a favor. Drop a comment about what you're interested in, what you're passionate about. Help us to help you by sharing that type of information. So as we craft and curate these conversations, we want to be intentional about what we share with you so that you're getting value, that you're wanting to come back every time we say that we're going live. You want to be here and you want to encourage people. So tell us what you need. Tell us your pain points, where you're struggling in your leadership, regardless of the realm, church, corporate space, small business, wherever you are. Let us know those things and drop the name of your business. You know, this is a collective community. And
Yes.
we're talking about collaborating today, and maybe you offer something that somebody else needs. So put that in there so somebody can see that and know how to get in touch with you. And hey, we are all that we have. And so
Exactly.
we
have and that's very critical. So, hey, Stephen, I just did some on Facebook I'd never done before. So when I clicked share the post, it actually allows me to click on the person I want to share it with. So I didn't have to at you. So it just did it. So technology is wonderful. The last couple of weeks, while we've been in the midst of this pandemic, of course, we've talked about, we've changed our P word from pandemic to possibilities. So while we've been in the midst of these times of possibility, okay, that's what we're working with. I want to say a special thank you to our first responders, medical professionals, law enforcement, government officials, and pastors and leaders around the globe who have made people their priority. I think if there was ever a time where the number one priority should not be your bottom line, should not just be trying to maintain whatever it is that you do, but that it should be about the people who need you, that time should be now. And so I want to say thank you to our first responders, medical professionals, law enforcement, government officials, pastors, leaders. Thank you for putting people first. With that in mind, we're actually going to introduce a new segment tonight that I'm really excited about, and we're calling it From the Front Lines. As a matter of fact, I need you to text or tag at least 5 people and tell them they don't want to miss this. This is called From the Front Lines. It's real life stories from those who are engaged on the front lines of this battle with COVID-19. Medical professionals, health professionals who are really in the trenches, fighting for the lives of others, putting themselves in harm's way. So I need you quickly, share this on your timeline, because I know you're going to enjoy and get insight and inspiration from what Stephen and I share, but you don't want to miss what's getting ready to be shared right now. I want to introduce somebody to you before I bring them into the room. She has been an RN for over 10 years, Southern University graduate, my undergrad alma mater there in Baton Rouge. She's serving on the front lines in NOLA in New Orleans, Louisiana, as a critical care nurse in ICU. So Stephen, imagine that. She's on the front lines in the throes of this pandemic, this time of possibilities, serving there in New Orleans, which has been one of the hotbeds for what's been happening lately. Also, she's the founder and CEO of the Braveheart Medical Missions Foundation that's meeting needs all over the globe. So I want everybody to join me. I can hear the hand claps already. Join me in welcoming somebody that's very special to myself and my wife. She's our little sister. She's a protege and a mentee of mine. Welcome, Erica Rogers. So Erica, I see you. There you are. I can't hear you. Are you connected? Unmute. I got you. There you go.
Okay.
Welcome, Erica. Good to see you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being willing to come on. I can't believe you've gotten a break. I know you and Demi talk almost every day. And what do you work normally? What, 12 hours?
12 hours. And since the pandemic, with the shortage of, resources and nursing hands, I want to say I've worked 5 12-hour shifts last week. Only one day off.
Wait a minute. You worked 5 12-hour shifts last week, back to back?
I worked 4, off 1, and then I went back for 1.
Wow. So talk to us about what you've witnessed on the front lines. Particularly, we've been hearing a lot over the last couple of days about the health disparities within the African American community. And we know over just the last 72 hours, there has been a spike in the infections and the death toll within the African American community. Tell me what you've observed. What percentage of patients that you've seen come through ICU? As a matter of fact, I believe over these past couple of weeks, all of your patients have been COVID-19 patients. Am I correct?
Every single last one of them, yes. Our hospital is literally, if we have 100% census, right now we have about 92% of those patients are COVID-19. Out of that 92% of the COVID-19 patients, I would be safe to say that 100% of them are Black.
Wait, say that again?
100% of the patient population that are COVID-19 in our ICU are Black people.
Wow.
Yes.
So tell us about your experience, first of all, just from a personal place. Give us 2 or 3 scenarios that you've experienced, because how long have you been on the front lines of this COVID-19 pandemic?
I started on the front lines on March the 17th. So right when we got our first case on March the 9th, I think, here in New Orleans, and then it started to rev up and populate and spread at a very rapid rate. And I've been on the front line since March the 17th. Kind of when I started and I went into it, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Honestly, I hadn't been watching the news. I heard that it was a big outbreak in China. I was trying to step away from the bedside, from the ICU, but I knew that this was a call to duty for me. It was more than just going back to work for hazard pay. It was more of, I need to serve my community. So
explain what hazard pay is. For those that may not be familiar with medical terminology, particularly in the context of nursing or medical professionals, what is that?
So let's say if you are, if you would make just roughly $40 an hour, you're making 3 times more than that per hour to work on the front lines.
So what you're saying is, look, I didn't go into this just so I can make a lot of money in a shorter period of time. I went into this because it's a calling and I really want to help people and make a difference in their lives. Yes.
So from my experience, it has been very, very sobering as a Black person growing up here in the New Orleans area, taking care of the people that could be my mom or could be my dad. The classic picture of a COVID-19 person that I've seen in my experience would be a person in between the ages of about 45 to 70 years old.
Okay.
Diabetes, if you have diabetes and you are exposed to COVID-19, you will be admitted to the hospital. You will have ICU time. If you have high blood pressure, if you have kidney disease, you will, if you're exposed, you will be admitted into the ICU. It was sobering for me because out of all of the nurses that work with me in the ICU, there may be about 7 Black nurses out of about 30.
Wow.
So the sensitivity to taking care of this specific population isn't the same across the board.
So you're seeing 100% African-American patients coming in infected with the virus.
Yes.
And you said out of 70 nurses?
Out of 30 nurses.
Out of 30 nurses.
7 Black
7.
nurses.
Wow.
7 Black nurses. And what I've noticed is the sensitivity towards the care of the patient is not the same. When these patients come into the hospital, you have to realize that when they leave their family, if they get transported by ambulance or whether they're being transported by a family member being dropped off to the emergency room, that may be the last time that they ever see them again.
Wow.
When it comes down to like treatment modalities, if you're over the age of 65 requiring dialysis, it's a checklist that you have to make in order to even be considered for dialysis. If you don't make that checklist, you're automatically being consulted with palliative care, meaning end of life care, meaning symptom management.
Wow.
That has been the most sobering thing for me, because I've been in ICU for 12 years or so. And typically, anybody who goes into kidney failure would get a chance at going on dialysis, but because we're stretched so far and thin with resources, supplies, and equipment, you literally have to meet a checklist in order to be considered to get dialysis. And out of those 100% of Black people who are admitted with the infection, if they are diabetic, they will require dialysis. They will go into kidney failure within 24 to 48 hours of admission. So just to see the streamline and to see the way that the care system has to be broken down, that was very sobering to me. And it's something, it's unfathomable. It's something that you can't even imagine hearing. And, you know, talking to family members on the phone. I make sure to call family members at least once a day. Not all nurses do it, but I do. I call them at least once a day around the noon hour, just to give the families a perspective on the nursing side without overstepping my, scope of practice.
And I'm sure they appreciate that. So you're calling the family of the patients.
I call the families of the patients to let them know from my perspective, what's going on.
Right.
And they're so uneducated.
Understand.
They're so uneducated on just healthcare. They're so uneducated on what can be the cause and why their family members were one of the ones who are a part of that statistic. And
that lack of education, of course, is systemic to the health disparity that we have in the African-American community, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So tell me this, what is it, just one or two things, I don't want to keep you on forever. What are one or two things in the Black community that we can do while we're talking about flatten the curve of this virus, how can we create some equalizing of this disparity that we have as it relates to health within the Black community? And then after you respond to that, give us a few tips of what we can do as preventative measures. It is suggested or almost projected that tomorrow there could be another spike across the country because you're in New Orleans. New Orleans is a very social place. This is crawfish season, folk eating crawfish and all of this. And so I'm sure all the social distancing rules have been broken. Talk to what we can do as it relates to the health disparity in the Black community, how we can help remedy that issue, and then talk to some preventative measures we can take just within the next 24 hours so that this spike won't be so incredible.
So what I can say would be the greatest equalizer, and I'm not sure if that can happen now. I think now we're just having to face the crisis at hand and deal with it. But I think that just, people that are influencers such as yourself, who have a voice, who can speak to community, form together. I think coalitions need to be formed that can join or merge. This is a great segue to merge mental health and public health, because it has to be a paradigm shift of the mind of how us Black people in our community think about food and engagement.
Okay.
That's the number one thing. If we don't get the mind changed, so programming, joining people together to, form structural programming that can speak to those issues, I think can, change the trajectory, the course of the trajectory going forward. I always say, let's teach the younger generation. This generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, they're all, we're stuck in our ways. Mm-hmm. So training the minds of the young people, they have pliable minds, and also investing in the Black family, the marginalized Black families, is a way that I think can change the health disparities as it pertains to the Black community. The social determinants are the same across the border.
Right.
It's just, finding a way to make it relatable to our people.
Right.
And it needs to come from Black people.
Understand.
Right now, preventative measures is really physical distancing, as me and Demi would say.
Right,
Physical distancing. I don't really think folks understand the concept of physical distancing, right? It's innocent socializing.
Right.
My own mom wanted to go visit her sister and walk through the house to see a garden, and it's innocent.
Right.
But it's still the contact, because out of every 10 people, at least 3 people in that group have been exposed or is a carrier to COVID-19.
Okay, you need to say that one more time, because our listeners need to hear that. I need everybody to hear this, and you need to tell at least 10 other people, because this is very critical for folk to understand, because I can promise you, right now, somebody's watching this on Facebook Live on their phone while they're around a bunch of other people, eating a neck bone or rib tips. I'm in Chicago. I know what they're eating around here.
Yeah.
So I say that one more time, because I think that's very critical to understand as it relates to physical distancing.
So out of 10 people that are joining together and I call it innocent socializing, because they don't want to cause harm. It's more of a mental, it's their mental capacity at this point, stemming from what they've been through over the last 30 to 60 days. Out of all 10 people that's gathered in a room, at least 3 people are carriers of the COVID-19. And if you are a carrier, you're highly infective, and you can go out in the world. Let's say you still going to work in the office. That means if you're in the office with 20 people, you're touching a table, you're opening a door with your hand, unconsciously, you're taking your hand and rubbing your nose or, wiping your mouth. If that person is highly susceptible or, have problems with those high pressured systems, blood pressure, diabetes, kidney failure, or habitual smokers, they are the ones that will be sick due to the COVID-19 infection.
So keep your distance, back up.
That is at this point with the crisis that we're facing, that's really all we can do.
Right, that's critical. Steve, do you have any questions for Erica before she goes?
No, she has laid it out very clearly, very plainly, at a very remedial level. If people don't get it, they just are willfully ignorant.
Right. They don't want to get it. So as I mentioned, Erica is also the founder and CEO of the Braveheart Medical Missions Foundation. Erica, if you can encapsulate this in about 60 seconds, tell us about what prompted you to start this Medical Missions Foundation, what its purpose is, and then tell us how people can find out more information about it. And then after you do that, give us your social media handles so that, because I'm sure after just what you've shared with us, some folk will want to reach out to you, want to hear more about what you have to say and your thoughts. But talk to us about Braveheart quickly. I know my wife sits on this board, and anything you do, she's like, we're supporting it. I don't have a choice. Whatever it is, I know I've already got to support it. So smart move on your part to have your best friend on your board.
Right.
Built-in support. But tell us about what prompted you, what its purpose is, how people can get more information, and then how they can connect with you.
I started Braveheart in 2014. I'm a humanitarian at heart. I went on a trip to Uganda, Africa, and to do just a medical mission, just kind of, reaching out to see what could possibly be my calling. And going there, I found that to be my purpose in life. I saw that malaria is the thing that I go out to really combat out there. It's a health disparity amongst third world countries.
Okay.
Saw that I could be doing more to make a difference, but also using their own village and their own doctors, their health professionals to tell me what it is that they needed, rather than me seeing a need and going out and doing what I think I should be doing, So I did that. And the next year I went out with a group of 5 ER nurses here. I used their providers, their doctors in Uganda. They know the health system best. They know the disparities better than I do. And from 2015 on, we've just started branching out, and we go across the entire country of Uganda building pop-up medical clinics speaking to the disparities that are most seen in those villages that we visit.
Wow.
That's what brought me to starting Braveheart. Braveheart's also going to extend another leg just through this COVID-19 pandemic. It's going to be a mental health support group for not only nurses and doctors, but for other frontline workers that are putting their lives at risk while, working to, cure and heal the people with this pandemic. And it's going to be called Feelings from the Frontline.
Oh, great.
And it's just, meeting the needs of people. That's what I want to do. How can people get more information about Braveheart? Braveheart's website is www.braveheart.org. You can email us directly. Our communications team would be in contact with you within 24 hours at info@mybraveheart.org. And we have an Instagram that's called Braveheart Foundation. And on Instagram and Facebook, it's both at Braveheart Foundation. And how can people get in touch with you if they wanted to reach out to you personally? They can do a personal email. At my email, it's erogers444@yahoo.com. And what's your social media handle? And my social media is _Erica Rogers. Thank you so much, Erica. I so appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you. And we look forward to talking to you more. In the meantime, we're going to be praying for you and we're encouraging you. And we hope you see more people survive. Yes, we do. Okay, that walk back out the hospital. Yes. That then you see have to be carried out of the hospital. Exactly. So happy Resurrection Weekend to you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Happy Easter. Bye-bye. All right, bye-bye. Man, that was quite insightful, Stephen. For sure, man. To have that. She hit on something that I think Demi and I were talking about this today, that I think we missed, and that is the mental health component. Correct. Which really is a perfect segue to what we're getting ready to talk about tonight. So for the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to be having conversations around the thought all in. And of course, that's become a tagline and a slogan for this stay in place order that's been given to us, this edict that has been given around the country, this quarantine that we're under. But we want to talk about all in the context of the power of relationship. Yes. And I believe if there's any component that's most critical for mental and emotional health, that's relational connection. For sure. That's why I feel like them saying social distancing is a misnomer. It really should be physical distancing. Correct. Because if there's ever a time you need social interaction, I mean, Stephen, that's what brought us to do what we're doing. We were minding our own business, and he and I got to talking, and we was like, you know what? We need to share these conversations with other people. We had no idea that what we're going through is going to bring us to the point where this would be a necessity. Correct. And Stephen, talk about that just for a moment as we go into this subject of all in the power relationship. About the impact that relational connection has on mental and emotional health. Sure. So when I've done leadership consultations with leaders, going into organizations to help to retool them, reshape them, shift them, I've noticed something, Rick. One of those things is that the leader is oftentimes lonely when they're away from everybody else, and you can have that real honest and open conversation with them. So loneliness is one of the greatest enemies of any leader. You can't be a rock on which other people depend if you're also an island. Mm-hmm. That's important for people to recognize and realize in this time, in this moment. And so there has to be connectedness. We are a collective. You can't be a rock on which other people depend if you're already an island. Yeah. That's so critical, right? Yeah. 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 So we were built for relationship. God, in his ultimate wisdom, created us as human beings to be in relationship. And it can be difficult when we find ourselves in a space where we can't connect, where we can't plug in. And the potential of any leader is going to be predicated upon those whom that leader surrounds themselves with, no matter what level, what type of leadership. As an example, how important the circle that you surround yourself is. When we look back, even from a political lens, I look at the
the reign, if you will, of Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
There were 138 members of his administration who were investigated or indicted.
Wow.
Now, I'm sure with our current situation.
Was that during the Iran-Contra
Yes.
affair? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Then you juxtapose that to Obama's administration, 0 in both categories.
Wow.
Who you surround yourself with is critical, it's important. And in these times that we find ourselves in, let me use a corporate term, you've got to have a community of practice. You've got to surround yourself with people who are connected with you in some way that makes sense. As an example, there's a group that I partner with, it's called 67. It's a group of executive pastors of mega churches here in Chicago and Chicagoland area. We gather together once a month to share, to impact, to influence, to cry, to cuss, to do all of that in the safety of that space. And at the same time, we're able to help each other walk through life, navigate our roles and our responsibilities. And so those things are critical. They're important pieces that we find ourselves in peer groups connected with people.
That's very critical. Someone said you're the average of the 5 people closest to your life. Now, here's what's interesting about this, because clinical psychologists say at one point, I think about 10 years ago, it may have been 1 in 5. Now it may be 1 in 3. But I'm going to show you why this is so critical.
Yeah.
So if you're the average of the 5 people closest to your life, clinical psychologists suggest that 1 in 5 people or 1 in 3 people suffer from mental illness, some mild and some severe. So watch this. So if I'm the average of the 5 people closest to me, and if 1 in 5 people could perhaps have some level of mental illness, I got to make sure my fave 5 is not made up of all 1 in 5s. like it really becomes critical. And so what you're talking about with this all in and power of relationship is there has to be, I think, 2 parts that I want you to continue with, but this evaluation and then recalibration, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, people with this stay in place order, people are at home with folk that they live with, but that don't necessarily mean they've been getting along with them.
Correct.
And so what I want us to deal with today, today's subject is that's what friends are for. Okay, that's the tag we're putting on today in this all in series. That's what friends are for. And we're going to deal with 2 things. We're going to deal with the anatomy of authentic friendship and relationship. And then we're going to deal with how to build a virtual village. Stephen, I want you to continue to talk, but here's the critical piece. I think it's important that we not allow anything or anybody to have a place of significance or voice in our lives that doesn't add any substance to our life. Would you agree with that?
Yes, totally.
I think that's, so you're talking about this 67, this group that you have with executive pastors, and I know other groups you're a part of and things you and I are talking about, even to engage people that are like-minded.
Sure.
This podcast is an example of that. I think it's so critical that you build your life, insulate your life with people that value the intrinsic core of who you are.
Yes.
And who have something to add to you so that you can maximize what you have. Continue in your conversation as you begin to expand and elucidate on this anatomy of authentic friendship and relationship.
So with that, Rick, let's talk about 2 common mistakes that we make in selecting people that are part of our circle.
Oh, this is good.
So number one mistake, we find people and bring them in, and in the process, we solicit praise instead of candor. Solicit praise instead of candor. So in essence, we stack our team with yes people. That is that it restricts our perspective and exposes us to blind spots, and it leaves us on an island when crucial decisions have to be made.
Right.
And so, I'm in the midst of making some important decisions, and so I call you. I call Christian, Paul Crevance, Van Moody, some people that are close to me in my circle, guys that I trust, and y'all gonna be truthful with me. You're gonna be honest, you're gonna be blunt, you're not gonna sugarcoat it, and that's what we need. I don't need you pat me on my back. I need you to say, no, you're walking down the wrong street the wrong way.
Right.
So number one, people that we soliciting praise instead of candor. Number two, we drive away individuals so that our power isn't threatened. So we will find ourselves surrounding ourselves with people who really don't bring anything to the table so that we rise above them. We're always in a position of power. All eyes are on us. People are looking to us. They're like our flunkies, our people. And so people who would threaten us because they're smarter than us, have more skill set than us, have a bigger name, bigger platform. Now, we don't want them. We want people lower than us so that we can feed our ego and our immaturity and our issues that are on the inside of us that we've not adequately dealt with.
And I guess that would be systemic, right? Because if I'm coming to you to solicit praise, it means I'm trying to feed some insecurity that I have, which as a result, I'm gonna make sure whoever is around me can outshine me.
Yeah, so we see this a lot, and I know this is a different conversation for a different time, but these spiritual fathers and spiritual son dynamics.
Really? You just gonna go there already? Right. It comes out of something that's lacking.
Yes, so we see a lot of that in those dynamics where something is lacking in the person, and so they get these people around them who will put their feet on the pedestal, and human feet weren't made to be placed on the pedestal. They weren't designed. So I got 6 questions that we can ask when we're in the process of considering who we should be connected with.
This is good.
All right, so whoever's taking notes, y'all get it.
This is the time. Principal alert. Dun, 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 dun. I'm gonna get me a sound effect one of these days.
The sound effect.
Principal alert.
And Rick, let me pause here to let people know that you and I do consulting as a side business, and we get paid for the information that we're sharing on here for free.
Right. Along with the roles that we serve in our respective assignments, we also do leadership consulting and project planning and all those other things. Yeah. And normally people are paying for this. Yeah. But we value you.
The comma in that check when they're paying us for this same information.
That's Thurston's check. That's Stephen's checks. Those are checks he's talking about. But before you give us these 6 questions, you say 6 questions to ask, right? Would you agree, Stephen, that there has to be a substratum, a foundation for authentic friendship and relationship, particularly when you talked about proactive and productive partnership? Would you say that altruism, that selfless concern for the well-being of somebody else, has to be the motivating factor?
Yes, that's foundational for any healthy, sustainable relationship.
Right.
It has to be the dying of self for the others.
It can't be self-serving.
Right.
It's got to be you wanting to serve. And I need you all to hear this, because that just doesn't work on an organizational level. That works on an interpersonal level. That works on a romantic level. Whatever level the relationship is on, it needs to start with altruism. It needs to start because you recognize the value of that other person, and you're not connecting to their life to take something from them. You're connecting to their life because you recognize their value, so you can add something to them. The old adage is, I can do bad by myself.
Yes, sir.
So I don't need you to come drain me. But if you're going to connect to my life, you got to add some. So I need you to get a pen and paper, your notepad on your computer or phone. Get ready to write down these 6 questions that you need to consider so that you can be able to assess and evaluate whether or not you have a healthy alliance, relationship, partnership, friendship, etc.
Sure. So question number 1, do they display exemplary character in the things that they do? Do they display exemplary character in the things that they do? Because the dishonesty of one can bring shame on you, shame on the whole group. And so that whole birds of a feather flocking together circle says a whole lot about who we are on the inside, that character piece, because gift, talent, skill set will get you to the door. Character is what keeps you on the other side of the door. And so that character component is critical. Number 2, do they bring complementary gifts to the table? Do they bring complementary gifts to the table? There needs to be a diversity of personality and perspective in relationships, because we're talking about a second ago about adding value.
Right.
And do that when you bring something complementary to the table, when you're seeking to add value to that other person's or those other people's lives.
Right.
Number 3, do they have influence with other people? Will people follow them? Can they implement decisions? Do they have influence? Do they have impact? Because I want to be connected with other strong people. If I can't get it done, I need to be able to know that, Rick, I can call you, shoot you a text, email, you'll get it done, you'll get it handled. So I'll run through those 3 again. Do they display exemplary character in the things that they do? Number 2, do they bring complementary gifts to the table? Number 3, do they have influence with others? Number 4, do they add value to whatever team you all have together? Do they add value to the team? And you need to be able to articulate what value they add. Not say, oh yeah, they're valuable. Yeah, they're great. I'm glad to have them around me. No, what specifically do they do that no one can do better than they can do? What will they infuse into the conversation if you bring them into the conversation? I had a friend, Santita Jackson, who has a progressive talk radio show. She reached out and said, Stephen, I want to bring some other voices, young voices on here. Do you have anybody? Immediately, 4 or 5 of my guys came to mind. Rick was the first person that I recommended to be on the show because I knew he would add value and a particular perspective to conversation.
And thank you for that connection, by the way.
No problem. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We value in each other. We dispense that value to other people who would benefit from that value.
Right.
So number 4, do they add value to the team? Number 5, do you share core values? Do you share core values? Are you at least on the same page on some of the basic stuff in life? This is the reason why many marriages fail, because at a core level, y'all ain't together.
Right.
Y'all don't see money the same way. You don't see faith the same way. You don't see keeping a clean house. Just basic stuff. There's some
stuff. You do realize each of these questions are a conversation by themselves. We're gonna have to parse this and break them down after you give them as a whole today. We're going to be coming back to revisit all of these because these are conversations in and of themselves. So, but continue.
Yes, sir. And then number 6, will they stretch you? Will they stretch you? Are they carbon copies of you, or would they challenge you in some ways that you need to be challenged? Leaders are lifelong learners. And so you ought to be surrounding yourself with people that challenge you, that stretch you, that'll change you, that'll cause you to recalibrate, to rethink about some stuff, to undo some stuff that's been done because you've just been comfortable doing it that way. Are they going to stretch you and make you different, make you better? So those are the 6 questions that we need to ask when considering who's kind of in our village.
So for those that are taking notes, just recapitulate all 6 of them quickly without having to give commentary. Give us all 6 of the questions that need to be considered for authentic friendship and a virtual and a literal village. Give those 6 questions again.
Number 1, do they display exemplary character in the things they do? Number 2, do they bring complementary gifts to the table? Number 3, do they have influence with others? Number 4, do they add value to your team? Number 5, do you share core values? And number 6, will they stretch you?
Wow, I hope you got all of that. Listen, we've already been on for 45 minutes. It's like we just started and we're coming to an end. We didn't even get to the second part of this conversation today. There's a book that Stephen and I have both read, and we were texting about it last night. It's applicable in every context of relationship, whether you're dealing with business or personal. It's called Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. We've got some other resources and books we're going to share with those that are members of The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. It will be streamed group. So if you're on Facebook, if you want to find out about other recommended readings and resources, you need to send us a request to join the group now. As a matter of fact, those of you that are already members of the group, Stephen's going to be making a post for you to put other recommended readings and resources under in this context of relationship, this context of leadership, this even dealing with mental health and emotional health. If you got books you want to recommend, even if it's your book, or you got resources you want to recommend, you can post those in the group. Don't post them here on Facebook Live. Don't post them here on YouTube. Only post them in the group. So in order for you to find out about these other resources that the erudite connections that we have available for you, you need to go over to the group. Here's the last thing I'd like for us to end with, Stephen, and we'll pick up this conversation next week. You don't want to miss next week. We're going to deal with the components of a virtual village. So we want to get your associations right and tight.
Yeah.
But on this point of the anatomy of authentic friendship, there are three areas that I want us to end with that I'd like for you to collaborate with me about, and let's elucidate and expand the thought about them.
Sure.
I think there are three things that are intrinsic qualities in authentic friendship and relationship. I think number one, somebody who's designed to be connected to your life should provide affirmation without being patronizing.
Yes.
You made the statement a minute ago about if somebody's to be connected to you, they shouldn't be coming to you for praise, but they should be coming for candor, for honesty. And I think that's very critical. Anybody that's in your life should have the capacity and the security with themselves to be able to affirm the magnanimity of who you are without being patronizing, or as the old folks say, blowing smoke, right? You know what I'm saying? So, and that's very critical. So they should be able to provide affirmation without being patronized. Number two, any authentic relationship should provide constructive critique without being condescending.
Yes.
You ever had somebody tell you the right thing, but they told you in the wrong way? You like, I know you're right, but I'm not even gonna tell you you're right because you said it's so wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna act like you're wrong, even though I know you're right.
I know in my heart you're
not
right.
Because of what you said, but because of how you can. Like, I know you were chomping at the bits to tell me this. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't like the way you. In other words, there's nothing about what you're saying that's affirming me.
Sure.
It's almost like you were waiting for an opportunity to find a chink in my armor, right? To give me a pimp slap. You know what I'm saying? So it's critical. Somebody who values you, they're going to affirm you without patronizing you, but they're going to give you constructive critique without being condescending. And then thirdly, somebody who values you in an authentic friendship or relationship is going to provide, and this is a tricky one, they're going to provide challenge without creating competition.
Yes, sir.
You get what I'm saying?
Sir.
In other words, I'm challenging you, but I'm not challenging you because I'm trying to prove I'm better than you. I'm challenging you because I want you to be the best you.
Yeah, I see the better in you that you can be.
Exactly.
I'm your blind spot indicator, and I see a spot that you don't see, and I'm only showing that you can grow and be at your ultimate. Yes, sir.
I don't need you to cut into me. I need you to help cut me out.
That's tweetable, sir.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying? And there is a difference, because some people want to cut into you and then other people want to cut you out. One of my favorite, I love poetry and I love philosophy. And I try to read in the 5 books a month that I read. I try to read in 5 different literary genres. And normally I'll put 2 of them together for each of the categories that I read in. And we'll talk about that at another day. But there's this conversation between Plato and Aristotle, to this point of not cutting into me, but cutting me out.
Yes, sir.
You've heard this conversation, the conversation between Plato and Aristotle. They're talking about the best way for a sculptor to form a sculpture. And so Plato said the best way for a sculptor to form a sculpture is to look at the unidentified mass of marble and clay, imagine what he wants it to be, and start cutting away at it until it looks like what he imagined. Aristotle said that ain't it, play. He said if a sculptor is going to form a sculpture, he looks into the unidentified mass of marble and clay, sees what it already is, and then cuts away everything that doesn't look like what it was designed to be. And I think that that gives you a summary, a summation of what authentic relationship and friendship is. Stephen was talking about that earlier, how, you know, if we both mutually connect with somebody in our respective relationships that we know can benefit from one of us, then we refer, or in some cases defer. Yeah. Because we already have the relationship. Say, no, you've already got me. You need to hear Stephen. You need to invite Stephen because I know the value of what he has. And so that's what we want to encourage you to do. Find people who see the value in you. You see the value in them. Don't cut into them, but do what Aristotle said. Cut away from them. Help them to be their best self. You have any closing remarks, Stephen? I feel like we almost need prayer. Hey, can we have a word of prayer? You know, that's how I feel, man. I mean, this has been so good because when you think about this, and we got to go, but relationship is everything. Everything right. People say everything rises and falls with leadership. That's true to a point.
Correct.
But if that's true, then that leadership is only as good or effective as the relationships that are in it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I think that's very critical. Any last words before we
I'll close out with this, since it is Holy Week, since we're getting ready to celebrate resurrection tomorrow. When we look at Jesus and his relationship with the disciples.
Hold on, let me get what key you want to be in. Let me get it.
A flat is good for me. We see a relationship that's replete with positive and negative experiences. We see a relationship that introduces challenges to the group. We see a facilitator who challenges the group to think in new ways. And we see a community who grows from honest confrontations. Yes. If we just look at Jesus and the 12 disciples. I need you to say
that one more time because they need to hear that. This is another principle alert, except this is a truth alert. Like, I don't even have a sound effect for that. Give those things to us one more time.
Sure. Relationship with Jesus and the 12 disciples. There's a relationship that's replete with positive and negative experiences. A relationship that introduced challenges to the group. A facilitator who challenges the group to think in new ways. And then a community who grows from honest confrontations.
That's good. And that's what's necessary. So in this Holy Week, as we approach resurrection on tomorrow, let's pay attention to the relationships around us, because the only reason we can have the celebration that we're having this weekend is because of relationship. The Bible says, and we're preachers, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. You can't ever put two preachers together and we not have a mini revival service. Listen, thank you for joining. The revolution will not be televised. It will be streamed with my brother and friend, StephenThurston. I'm RickyAllmon. We're so glad that you were here. We'll be back here next week. Those of you that are part of the group, if you have subjects or topics that you would like for us to discuss, bring to the conversation, or even guests, or maybe you may be a guest that we'll bring on to talk about something. We want to have you on. Please go over, and those of you on Facebook Live, join the group. Listen, I need you to answer the question. Some of y'all trying to get in through the back door of the club. You got to come through the line. So answer the questions that we ask you. The reason we want to do that is because we want to make sure that we're providing you what we need. So that's why we're asking you the questions that we're asking you. Have a great weekend. Socially, physically distance. We don't want anybody that's connected to our video podcast to be affected or infected directly. We want you to help other people and bring hope to them. Stephen, thank you again, man. Thank you for being brilliant.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And thank you for being bold.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. I think that's your personal podcast, Brilliant and Bold. We'll have to do something that you can pay me later. You remember what you was talking about, that consulting fee with all the comments? Thanks, man. Have a good Easter.
I'll let you soon, bud.
All right. Talk to you later.